Everyone has Ed, lessons from my mentor. This one, largely John Glasser, who helped me quite a bit when I first became a CIO. I was really quite lost, never been trained or mentored to be a CIO. So he ended up being my Chime bootcamp faculty sort of table coordinator. And so I kind of like made a deal with him, like, can I call you anytime? And I did call him, and he always returned my calls or took my calls. So I always aspired. I wanted to be like John or someone else. I'd see someone else. I literally back then they had print magazines more so than things available on the internet for reading and education. And I remember on one of my walls, I cut out some pictures from where it was like the cover of some of these healthcare magazines, and I was like, I want to be like that person, you know. And finally, John and others sort of set me straight, like, no, no, you, be the best version of you, and so forth. Because I get that a lot as well. Like people will see some of the adventures that I'm off running and doing, and they contact me like, how do I do that? How do I have that opportunity? How do I get that adventure? And I try to help people, I really do, and give them some ideas, but none of them are like quick fixes. It's not like, oh, just put up this website and suddenly you'll have this opportunity. And I think people look for those quick fixes, but don't realize all the effort and hardships that it took to make you who you are that enable these other opportunities. So what I'm trying to articulate is a little difficult to do. So those of you who think that I'm arrogant, and maybe I am, that this will just reinforce that. Others who don't know me afterwards, you might say, not sure. But I think those who really know me and know my heart know that I'm sharing this to really try to help people like myself who always wanted to be like someone else and try to have their experience when all that would do is lead to misery. So I finally, like I said, learned from my mentor to be myself and create the opportunity. So when it comes to sort of leading adventures, I'll tell you what it took so that you can emulate them, only if you're willing to take the long road and the hard road. And then you'll have similar adventures, but you may not want to. That's why you have to be you and just follow the road that you feel most comfortable with, and you'll have a different adventure. None are better than the other. They're all fun and adventurous. So that's really what I'm talking about. So it's not luck. It's not a website. It's a combination of many, many things. So people see, oh, you go off and do this and keynote that around the world, whatever the example might be. Or I'll give you a couple of examples. Like, when I used to do a lot of Ironman, oh, I want to do Ironman, I want to climb all those mountains. I want to win that tournament. And not understanding that in order to climb that mountain or to do an Ironman triathlon, it wasn't like something I decided, 3 months ago, I'm going to do a Ironman triathlon. And then you do it and show the world how, wonderful you are. And it doesn't work like that. It's hard. It's hard work. It's, as for most people, it's at least a 6 month process of 20 some hours a week and suffering. And yeah, you get the glory for about 24 hours after you cross the finish line, and then that's about it. So you don't do it for that, but it takes a lot of effort to get there. My favorite example I share with people, because it's not something I've spoken about often because I've been fixated on climbing mountains and triathlon for so long, but I used to play a lot of competitive tennis. And for those who do tennis, they have a rating system, and I was like a 3-0, 3-5, and 4-0. So these tournaments, and if you do really well, you get bumped up to the next level. And so I used to win a lot of these tournaments, and the best thing about my tennis game was my serve. So I had this very, very unique serve with quite a bit of slice on it. Not a tremendous amount of speed, but quite a bit of slice. And that really helped me do well in these tournaments. And people would be like, oh, I wish I had a serve like that. I wish I had a serve like that. All that kind of stuff. So what people don't know is when I met up with my friends who we practiced together, at 6 a.m. on some city courts, this memory particular was Pueblo, Colorado. I was there actually at 5 a.m. with, I had a couple of huge crates full of old tennis balls. And my deal was I'm going to serve 1,000 times before anyone shows up. So when they showed up, we did the regular practice, hit around and got better. But I hit an extra 1,000 serves beforehand, which helped quite a bit. But people don't see that. They just like, I want to win tournament. I want to do tournament. But no, it took a lot to win that tournament. And it was mostly, in my case, around my serve. So what I'm trying to share with you is some like non-healthcare work examples where you really have to invest quite a bit. People only see the final product. Oh, look, you won this trophy or whatever. They don't necessarily appreciate or understand what it took to get there. And it's the same now talking about healthcare profession. So, a lot of these adventures come around because one, I served for 20 years as a CIO. So various healthcare systems, academic healthcare systems. These are all purposeful, by the way, academic, faith-based, for-profit, not-for-profit, community-based, public. I literally had a plan to hit all those, and I did. And so that's 20 years worth of being a CIO, which is not a simple job and very rewarding. I loved it. Don't get me wrong, but it is a hard work. And so when you see someone on stage, you're like, I want to be like that person and be talking. Well, they did 20 years of, and it's not just that, I'm going to get to that in a second, but 20 years of being a CIO. Yeah, some people say, oh, I just write a book. I'll write a book and then gives me the authority to speak like I did digital transformation, or they're working a sales role, and nothing wrong with any of these. Remember, be the best version of you, because there's things that you can do that I could never do. And hopefully we'll never seek to want to do them because that's not my adventure. But they'll be in different roles. Oh, I'm a physician. That's a good one too. I'm a physician, therefore I can speak about digital transformation. Well, maybe you can because you actually did the work. But if you didn't do the work, you're just talking theory. So think about that. So this is 20 years of being a CIO and doing digital transformation, just as an example. And I think, I served quite a bit of time early in my career, but also later in my career in clinical technical roles. So a combat medic, anesthesia tech. And most recently, when in my last healthcare system where I served, Cleveland Clinic, I also served weekly as an anesthesia tech. So I was always like trying to keep my clinical technical capabilities because it brought me new experiences that I can then speak about. And then I would make connections between digital transformation, my role as CIO, and how that connects like what I observed in the OR and other care settings as a volunteer and things like that. So there's a lot of that effort involved. So I wasn't just a CIO, but I was actually doing things on the clinical side and trying to better understand it. But I won't go into detail, but I think you might understand where I'm headed. So it's a lot of that type of thing. And then I just did stuff as well, so whatever it is for everyone, it's a little different. There's not one thing better than the other. For me, it was like climbing mountains. I want to climb the 7 summits, the highest peak on every continent. I got about halfway through, never finished for a couple of different reasons, but it created opportunities for stories, for adventure, for life, things that you can share. So people would say, well, how did you do all these things, win these tournaments or do Ironman or Team USA or, that's another thing. So again, it doesn't have to be Team USA. You do you, but do something. If you seek to like have these great adventures, you got to do something. If you're not doing something, you're probably not going to get them. So don't look at other people and say, I want to be like them, because that's not your path. So be the best version of you. Forget about them. They're immaterial. Do you. So a lot of this stuff came up actually years ago. I think I wrote this book. This is my first book, 2014 probably. Extraordinary Tales of a Rather Ordinary Guy, because like I am Mr. Average in every way possible. You read the book and you'll know. But I've had above average adventures because of some of the things I wrote about. Because people would say, Ed, write a book because I want to do the same things that you're doing. And so I said, okay, there's one chapter called Work Your Ass Off, because that's what it takes. You all know the 10,000 hour rules. Like these things just don't happen. Like you have to like invest hard work doing things, not just theory, talking about it, or working with a company that does things that you're not doing. Do things. So if you're in a role where you're not a doer and you want to speak about doing, then ask someone in your current company. You can always change jobs and be a doer, but ask someone in your current company, hey, is there a way that I could go out in the field and I could do these things 1 day a week or 1 week a month or 1 month a year, whatever it is. Get that sort of experience. That's what I'm talking about. And then, it just talks about passion, finding passion, and there's 10 different things. I'm not trying to hawk a book. I'm just saying people have asked this question for a long time. So I keep doing the things that are in the book, leading to these other adventures. Now, so that's part of it. So it's like that whole work side. But the other thing that makes me who I am, the best version of me, is, I went through being, people talk about being patient advocates and things like that. Super, super important. Love them all to death. Really important work, and we need more. And so unfortunately, and so you don't want this experience. You don't want to be like him because, I went through all this. I think it's well known that I had a heart attack in the middle of a race. I had a widowmaker. Like I should have been dead, I forget the exact statistic, 85, 95% people with LAD, immediate, basically one last breath and you're done. I was fortunate, and lived through it. And then I had the equivalent of about stage 3, stage 4 cancer and had to have a prostatectomy. And I wish that on no one, either of those cases, but I understand what it's like to be a serious, serious patient. I also had the privilege of being on boards of some health systems today. And that gives me a tremendous amount of insights and learning as well. So for me, I'm taking these inputs as a 20-year CIO, these clinical experiences, these patient experiences, and board member experience. And that's so when I speak about digital transformation or something, I can speak to it at multiple levels and actually having led teams that are doing it. So those are some things. Then maybe the secret key. So again, my heart is really to share with you, be the best version of you. Here's some ideas how to do it. Create these adventures of your own that align with who you are, not someone else, whether it's me or someone else, it doesn't matter. Just be you. So create your own. And I try to drop you some ideas on like what you can do to do that, find your passion, work your butt off, that sort of thing. Diversify, have hobbies, and naturally things will come up to give you a platform on which to speak or whatever it is that you desire, to write books or anything. So that's really key. But here's the main thing. And kind of leading into the main thing are some other sort of hardships, that I've had in my life, and others have had worse. So I'm not sharing these to say, oh, I feel bad for Ed. No, I'm sharing these with you to make a point about the main attribute. And also to tell you, how it is that I've become who I am in all those other roles that I mentioned. And so I grew up, in Germany, many of you know, and I came to the United States when I was young, and we dressed like, we were from Bavaria, which is southern part of Germany in the mountains, Black Forest. And back then, you dressed like you'd see people in The Sound of Music, although that was Austria, but it was a similar dressing style. And so we were made fun of at school. It was hard. It really was, actually. I was bullied. Today we would use the terms bullied and beat up on because of the way I dressed, and then later the way I looked and all that kind of stuff. And we were poor. I was the youngest of 7. We were on food stamps. My parents were awesome, did the best they could. But the fact is we were on food stamps and all that kind of stuff. And then even after I got married, life moved on, struggled my way through school, flunked out of school, got arrested a couple times. It's all in the book. And then we were on food stamps, and I was working factory jobs. So I hope none of you ever had to do that, but it shaped who I am and created these adventures and these stories. And that's why you can't replicate it. And so, I worked in factories that probably would be shut down today by OSHA. Like there was one, I'll never forget it. I did Tellad Water Pick, so everyone knows that company. And I was on the assembly line twisting these shower heads and stuff like that. And well, I could go on to that. But the one that the OSHA violator, it was this huge warehouse. And back then you had CDs. And so they made racks. Like if this is a CD cover thing, you put it in a wooden rack. So it has like wooden dowels and, 2x2s basically on either side. And they would bring in the wood, the uncut wood, just basically a tree. And in there, the first part of the factory was, they would take off the bark and they would slice it into smaller pieces, which created all sorts of sawdust in the air. And then they would varnish it, which created all sorts of bad smells. And then by the time it got to me, my job at the end of the assembly line was they had flat boxes and I had to unflatten them, open them up basically, tape them so it's keep its shape. And then I take the final product, and I put it in the box, I tape the box, and I put it on a pallet. And then after it had like 50 things, I'd wrap it and saran wrap the pallet and then I'd move it to the dock. So they come in as a tree and leave as a finished product that would then go to Walmart. So, I mean, stuff like that, and at this point I had a master's degree and I was a first lieutenant in the Army Reserve. I mean, talk about, creating humility and humbleness and all that kind of stuff. So I get it, man. I was a janitor for a while too in a healthcare organization, and so I understand, and so I'm so thankful for those in those roles today, and I understand what it's like, and I'm glad for the experience. But what I'm sharing with you, it hasn't been a simple thing, and it's just kind of made me who I am. So that transparency leads me to the main point that I keep referring to, and that is the one thing that's hard to teach because I don't know, because I've tried, because I had friends who sincerely were like, Ed, I mean, and I say this with deep humility. It's embarrassing even to say it out loud, but they're like, I want to be like you. And I always say, no, you actually don't. Because I went through some horrid stuff. Like I got a divorce. That I hope none of you have ever had a divorce, but no matter, well, I shouldn't say it that way. I Let me put it like this. I wish I wouldn't have had a divorce. I'm glad the way my life has turned out since then, for sure. I've got no complaints, but I didn't go into the marriage thinking divorce, and I didn't want to disappoint our kids that we had about their parents getting divorced and my family and other people. So I wish that on no one. So it's a very imperfect life. So if you think I'm a braggadocious or whatever, no, 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 no. I've done a lot of bad things and I'm not proud of. And then I got a divorce. I'm super sorry about that. So I wish that on no one. That's why when people say I want to be like you, it's like, I'm not sure you do. But the one thing where they're really getting at is, or I'm trying to teach them, but I don't think you can. But I'm sharing it. Maybe you can, or maybe you're close and you can tweak it. Is you got to be authentic. You have to be real. So a lot of the people that are trying to emulate me or someone else, they're not real people. You look at everything they post, everything they say, they do on social media or in person is perfect. I mean, they always look beautiful. They're always dressed beautifully. They always say the perfect thing. And it's like most people look at that. I mean, some people look at it and say, wow. But you know what I do when I see that? I'm like, not real. Not real. And so I think one of the things that people who are curating some of these adventures I get to be a part of, they're just looking for real people, authentic people. They don't want perfection. And that's why like on my channels, I'm purposely not, I don't purposely be unprofessional or unperfect, but I just let it roll. It's like, nah, there's going to be a few uhs and buts and, those sort of things. It's not going to be super, super polished. It's not who I am. I'm not a super, super polished person. So I am what I am. And I'm happy with that because I'm being me, the best version of me. And that's what I'm trying to articulate to you, to be the best person you. Quit looking at other people and just be you. So to make that transition, though, that magical piece is truly that transparency. And it's hard for people. That's why I say I don't know if people can do it that aren't wired that way already. And that's the other thing. And I'll come back to the first thing, but you got to do this your whole life, or start now and do it for the rest of your life. You can't do it because, oh, that sounds like a good idea. I think I'll fake my way and be that way for a time. You just got to be authentic and real and keep doing it. So that's one important thing. You can't, it's not like something you could copy because you'll be found out. So going back to the main point, don't filter anything. Use no filter for how you speak, for how you dress, for your pictures. Don't do it. Just be real. Someone that others can relate to, and share the crap that's happened. Like I shared with you, like these illnesses I had. They're horrid. And I shared with you the divorce. And I've been let go from a job before. And what a terrible experience. And I've wronged people. And I feel horrible about. And I wish I could reverse time, and I can't. So I freely am open about those things. And that's what helps make me who I am and gives me these opportunities that I have. And so if you want something similar, I just think you need to be authentic. And I think more opportunities will head your way. But in all of that, you got to be you. So I hope that makes sense and it wasn't too much rambling. There is a coherent message there, I think, as I sort of sketched out my notes. And if I can help you in any way, I'm happy to do it. But the bottom line is you need to create your own unique adventure based on who you are, all of your experiences. If you don't like where it's headed or what the results have been, or you want to have these different experiences, then you need to try and do some of the things that I mentioned, diversify your interest, do a lot of different things, go deep into a lot of different things, get as many unique experiences as you can, help a lot of people along the way. And the most important thing, again, is do it with authenticity. Do it with transparency. Be a real person and just love people. And I think it'll happen for you.